Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can all see me. Welcome and thank you for attending and being here tonight for our second online ARK speaker series called Gaining Access Through Accessibility, offered by the ARK team. ARK stands for Accessibility Renovations for Kids, or ARK for short. My name is Heather Petrau-Rasaya, and I am a former board member and events director at ARK. As most of you know, ARK is a registered charity based in Calgary that provides accessibility renovations for children with mobility challenges. We fund, plan, and execute the renovations in collaboration with our community partners and volunteers in Calgary, and by doing so, we ease the lives of children and their families. We recently completed a project in November for Colby, who has cerebral palsy and needed a wheelchair to get around. Her family lives in a mobile home, and we were happy to have built a new wheelchair ramp to help her enter her home. Our upcoming renovation project in January 2021 is for 6-year-old Andrea. Andrea is a bright, friendly child who loves her dog, Lily. She lives with spina bifida. Andrea's mother recently lost her job due to the pandemic, and they need our help to make their house an accessible home. Our team is planning to build a completely accessible bathroom in January with the installation of a chairlift in March. Our event today will feature a virtual silent auction with proceeds going towards Andrea's renovation project, and we will be sharing details on how to participate in that later. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you our speakers who will be sharing their personal stories and some home accessibility tips. Our first speaker will be Kevin Mark. Kevin has been a quadriplegic for over 38 years. And when he was 16 years old, he suffered a spinal cord injury while playing hockey in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Kevin spent 8 months in rehabilitation before returning home. He went on to obtain a Bachelor of Science in Engineering at the University of Saskatchewan and worked for 25 years in engineering, marketing, and sales. He has also served on the board of directors for Accessible Housing Society, Calgary Handi-Bus Association, and West Scenic Housing Co-operative. And most recently, he has been working as a volunteer for Alberta Health Services, providing peer support to patients with spinal cord injuries. We also have a second speaker, Souheil Saab, who I will introduce to you in a little bit. And before we get started, I would like to touch on a couple of online housekeeping items. There is a Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So if you have a question to ask either one of the speakers or of the ARK team in general, just type in the question and we will attempt to answer it throughout the webinar, but there will also be a live Q&A portion at the end of each session with each of the speakers and another one at the end of the webinar. There's also a thumbs up button in the Q&A box. So if you see a question that you would like asked, just hit the thumbs up button and it will upvote the question towards the top. I would also, before we continue, I would also like to give a shout out to R&R Spa at the Fairmont Palliser and Hotel Le Germain, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, for donating gift certificates to all attendees. So by attending this webinar tonight, you will receive a gift card to their spa. Thank you, R&R, for your generosity. And with that, I would like to invite Kevin to join me on screen.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Heather, for that introduction. My story starts in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, where I was born and raised. When I was young, I loved to play sports and hang out with friends. My favorite sports were basketball, golf, and especially hockey. I loved hockey. I was even the captain of some of my hockey teams. In 1982, I played hockey for the Yorkton Midget Terriers. I was in grade 11. It was January and we were playing the Notre Dame Hounds. It was the third period and the game was going as usual. We were losing. we didn't score a goal. So I was chasing the puck down the ice. And as I approached the puck, another player came up from behind and hit me. And I went over head first. Bang! I hit the boards and crumpled to the ice. I couldn't move. The damage was done. I suffered a spinal cord injury in my neck at C6. I would be a quadriplegic for the rest of my life. My future, my dreams, my hopes, my identity vanished. I spent the next 8 months in a hospital in Regina, Saskatchewan, doing my rehabilitation and recovery. The whole time I was there, I kept thinking about, I can't wait to return home to Yorkton. I wanted to be home with my family, where they loved me, and where my mom would cook all my favorite foods. Do you know what it's like to be in a hospital for 8 months eating hospital food? Oh my God. My father owned a construction company. He took the time to talk to some disabled people about modifying our home for accessibility. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was sure lucky to have a father who could do that for me, and that I would have a fully accessible home when I returned. After 8 months, I asked the doctor, could I return back to Yorkton to start grade 12 in September with my friends? My high school, though, was not accessible at all either. It had stairs everywhere. They had to put in ramps, a washroom, and a giant stair glide lift for me. So the stage was set for me to return, and nothing felt better than returning home to start my life again and live it to its fullest. My home and my school were made accessible, and that set the stage for me, and that was my launching pad. So what have I been doing over the past 38 years? Well, actually, fast forward, I've been very, very busy. I got my high school degree, went on to the University of Saskatchewan and got my engineering degree. I moved to Calgary and I worked for 25 years in marketing, engineering, and sales. I met my wife, Allison, and we've been married for over 27 years now. I raised a stepson from the age of 2. Lars is now 33 years old. I don't know where all the years went by. Oh my God. I learned to drive, and I drove for 32 years. Talk about freedom. Allison and I have done a lot of things, and we've built many houses, and we like to socialize. We go to sporting events, concerts, and we volunteer and do many things. And the thing we really like to do is travel. We've been to over 15 different countries and many, many more cities. So that leads me to the theme for today: success through accessibility. I will share with you today 3 keys that I've seen to achieve success through accessibility. The first key is initiative. Where was the initiative shown in my story? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. My father and my school. They saw the need for accessibility and wanted to do something about it. You know, many things in our society and in life don't ever happen because nobody wants to take charge. Our communities need more, our community needs more people that have courage and gumption to help others and take the initiative to make things happen. That's why I like the ARK Society. They are full of initiative. They are founded on some strong-minded individuals who want to make a difference for disabled people through accessibility. The first key to success is initiative. The second key is funding. As I mentioned, I was lucky because my father owned a construction company and my family had the ability to pay for the renovations. My school secured funding to put in that big giant stair glide lift in the school. I'm not sure where they got the funding from, but they got the money. And you have to remember, back in 1982, accessibility was not as common as it is today. And that's why we're here today. The ARK Society wants to raise awareness about their great cause and get more support. Support comes with time, resources, and hopefully donations. The first key is initiative. The second key is funding. So what else do we need? What's the third key? Are you ready? The third key is action. I can't overemphasize the importance of taking action immediately without delay. Providing accessibility to disabled people is like giving wings and freedom. Lack of accessibility is like a ball and chain. I was lucky because my school and my father took action immediately to get the renovations done for my return. There is no time to waste. Delaying is only detrimental to the motivation for success. So there you have it. The three keys to achieving success through accessibility is 1, initiative, 2, funding, and 3, taking action. When you think about it, building accessibility for disabled people is setting the stage for success. I've been involved in establishing and renovating 3 homes for accessibility. The first home was in Yorkton. My parents owned a bungalow with only 2 steps into the front entrance and a wide door, so getting in was no problem. My father built an addition for a new master bedroom for mom and dad, and then we combined 2 of the bedrooms, and my dad made 1 bedroom and an accessible washroom for me with the shower, toilet, and sink. My second home was the first home that Allison and I bought in Calgary. It was a used home that we renovated. We had to put in a ramp through to the back door. We had to widen doors throughout with theater doorknobs. And we had to make the washroom more usable for me. The third home we built in 1995 from the ground up, brand new. When you build a home from brand new, of course, you can build in a lot more accessibility and features without incurring as much cost necessarily. Allison and I pride ourselves in making sure our home looks like a home and that it doesn't seem noticeable as an accessible home or institutionalized. Having been in a wheelchair for 38 years and having renovated 3 homes, the current home we're in, actually, we just renovated again after 25 years to get it up to date and make some improvements for better accessibility for me. Because no matter what you do in a renovation or trying to establish this accessibility for an individual, you'll always learn things to improve on. It's always better to start by doing something and recognize that you'll always realize things can be done better or easier as time goes on. So now I'm going to have a look at some slides of my home to show you what we have done. Thanks, Cindy. This is our home well, we built the home in 1995, but my first slide there is the home in 1996, the summer of 96. And Cindy, I don't see that picture anymore, so I'm not sure anybody else can. I assume you're working on fixing it. Okay, let's go back to the very start if you can. Okay, this is the house when they just put in the yard in 1996. I wanted to show this because in the next slide you'll see why I couldn't show the outside of the house, but I just want to point out a few things about this. As you can see, there's no visible ramp into the front entrance, but it is flat all the way up to the front door. The garage is extra wide on the right side so that I can get my lift out inside the garage, and my wife and I both park our vehicles in there. We're on a corner lot, and the one thing you got to be aware of is a corner lot can be difficult in the winter with this amount of sidewalk and driveway to clear. My wife Allison does it most of the time, but it's a lot of work. So you may want to avoid that or get a corner lot without a sidewalk around it. The nice thing in the summer is at the gate to the backyard, I can go through the side of the house yard through into the backyard. And I always say it's best to start with a bungalow, whether you're renovating from a used house or building a new house, because you want to have all your living and access easily done throughout the house. I know I go from room to room to room like all day long, and so it's easy not to have to bother to go up to an upper floor. Next slide, Cindy, please. So after 25 years, this is what our house looks like. It's unbelievable. And those are all the original trees. Okay, keep going, please. This is our front entrance. As you can see, it's flat in, but as well, the front entrance is fully covered so that if there's any elements, rain or snow, I can sit at the front door and not have to worry about that. And so it's a good idea that we've put in at this house. As well, you'll see a grab bar across the middle of the door, which allows me to pull the door shut when I go through. It's easier than grabbing the lever doorknob. And we have a smart lock on there as well. The smart locks are excellent nowadays, especially if you have caregivers or other people that need to go in and out of the house. You can provide them each with codes. And I also use it with my iPhone where I can just say to, hey Siri, unlock the door, or hey Siri, open the door, and it will do that for me, whether I'm lying in bed or anywhere in the house. Next slide. Room door is unlocked. Sorry, I just said that series. Okay, the next slide here is our front entrance closet. And I just wanted to show the barn door because they are very popular nowadays in interior home design. And you have the space actually, they work quite well because they slide so easily. And in this case, it slides wide open and I can get access right into the closet. And so it works wonderful. Souheil coming up next is going to show you some really cool stuff with what he has for closets and other renovations. This is a picture of our kitchen. I like this because we show the sink, which is a farm sink. I go up sideways, and I know a lot of people do, disabled people do that, where they just go up alongside the sink. The farm sink is nice because it's lower and has a much thinner apron, so it's easier to reach into the sink and use it. And these faucets are so great nowadays. You can even get touch faucets so that you don't have to pull a lever. You just touch it and it works. I don't have that in this case. Next slide, please. Here's me at my coffee station, and if I have to prepare anything simple or do anything in the kitchen, I have this work area to do that. And this is very important. I highly recommend that anybody building a kitchen for a wheelchair should have a little space, a table, a counter where a disabled person can use to put to do things. Next slide, please. This is a picture of where I sit at the kitchen. I have a custom-made table with a height that works for me, and you can go to furniture shops and ask if they can do that for you. And some of them, well, this one I got at Bracco Brothers. I also want to point out the lower windows, and we'll see in the next slide what also is, I can show you some more of that. Go to the next slide. Here's me in my office. And again, I like a lot of the spaces for wheelchairs, and I do all my heavy thinking here. And this is the room where I'm at right now to do my talk for you. Note how big the windows are. Again, when you build a house from new, you can make sure the windows go low so you can see out. A lot of older homes have high windows and you cannot see out, and you definitely want to be able to look out into the yard and see out. And in some cases, this is good for me because I can see out front when I'm taking a handy bus. Next slide, please. This is our washroom in the master bedroom. 2 sinks. I'm always slow. I have 1 speed and that's slow. So I use the right sink and it's clear underneath. Allison uses the left sink, and any married couples, I highly recommend having 2 sinks in the washroom. The next slide is my shower, and my shower here is in that same bathroom. It's set up where I can just back in there. There's knobs back there I can just use with my elbow or hand to turn. And there's actually a shower wand along the wall on the left. You just can't see it. If you look to the side of the shower, you can actually see into my bedroom. And just by chance, I caught the ceiling rail lift as well in our bedroom that my caregivers use to get me in and out of bed. So there you have it. That's what our house looks like. I hope if you have any questions about what I'm talking about or any of these slides, please note those through, and those will be asked to me shortly after here. So, you know, I can see after 38 years, this is where I've arrived at, and I've seen just about anything. So before I wrap up, I'd like to ask for any questions or field any questions that there might be, and then I'll just close off at the end. Questions? I don't hear anything. Heather?
Hi, Kevin. There is one question from an anonymous attendee, and it's, is there a door on the shower?
There is a glass door on the shower. I just had it open because when I took the picture with the shower closed, there was too much glare coming off the glass. But what you do is you can build these enclosures either fully in glass, or like I do, where you just have the door, and you would go to a glass shop and they would send someone out to measure it because it needs to be custom fit. It's really hard to buy them off the shelf. So if you go to a place like Cascade Glass, they do that kind of thing, and it'll make sure it fits in properly for your space.
Thank you for answering that. Are there any other questions from anyone else in the audience?
How are we doing for time, Heather?
We're doing good. You still have a few minutes, actually.
Okay, good.
Just going to wait for a couple more minutes. There are a couple more questions. Is there anything else that you do not have in your home right now that you feel you could benefit from?
Well, I don't have the smart locks on all the doors. I would like that, but more automation. Some of the things I didn't show you were you can get automated blinds that can go up and down. I have those in a couple of my rooms. There's different options. They are expensive, but you've got to pick the windows where you really want to have the ability to open and close. And there are a lot of Google and Apple automation projects that where you can dictate through your smartphone to operate devices. And I think that's pretty good.
Okay, thank you for answering that. We have a couple more questions. Someone has asked, can you speak a bit about your involvement with Accessible Housing Calgary?
That was a long time ago. And Accessible Housing Society does provide and assist people with accessible housing in Calgary. And it's evolved over many decades now. And their focus now is on, promoting and access in home living and in some facilities that they run. But it's been a long time, and I suggest if you go to their website and you will learn more about who they are and what they do. But they're right now managing a number of accessible group setting facilities.
Thanks, Kevin. And someone has asked, what accessibility improvements did you make in the renovation?
In my home that I showed, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I asked that, and there are photos. I'm not sure to the person that asked this question, if you have any specific questions about the photos shown, please submit those questions. And the third and last question I've received is, how will someone who does not have a lot of money do these renovations? Are there discounts or places that offer these renovations at a discounted price?
Well, that would be nice, but I haven't found that. And this is a good thing why ARK has started up and is running, because there aren't a lot of places where people can get access for funding. Now, if you do renovations, you collect up your costs because you can submit those with that tax return. So that's a benefit where you can get some offsets in your taxing if you've done some renovations. Otherwise, it's very difficult, and it's always nice when you can find people and friends and family that have the means and capabilities to do the work and help you through the process. Again, I was lucky with my family and my father when I was younger.
Thanks, Kevin. I also want to make mention that there is a resource that was shared in our first webinar that we hosted in the summer about funding for home modifications, shared by a speaker that we had in that webinar. So I would be happy to have the ARK team share that with you as a follow-up as well.
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kevin.
Can I wrap up, Heather?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to just wrap up here. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope that my part of the presentation has gotten you thinking about how you can make a difference for disabled youth through accessibility. And just think about it, that you could build a launching pad too and help a disabled youth person achieve success through what? 3 keys: initiative, funding, and action. Cheers.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for sharing your insightful story with us and sharing photos of your home modifications. That was very educational to me, and I have no doubt that it was educational to our audience as well. Before we continue on with the next presentation, I am super excited to let you know that as part of our event today, you will have the opportunity to participate in a virtual silent auction. We've collected some amazing items such as gift baskets of chocolates, wine, and salon products from local businesses that you can bid on. So keep an eye out for the silent auction link, which we will show at the end of the webinar after our final Q&A. I would now like to invite Souheil to join us for his presentation. Hi, Souheil. Sorry, wrong window here. Okay, so Souheil is also a paraplegic as a result of a motorcycle accident 23 years ago. He has firsthand knowledge of the challenges that persons with mobility issues face and the importance of advocating for oneself and others. Since his accident, Souheil has lived in 6 different homes, which he had to modify to make wheelchair accessible. He has a lot of personal experience with discovering what does and does not work and what will make living with mobility challenges easier. Over to you, Souheil.
Thank you, Heather, for that. I'm just going to share my screen here. There we go. Thanks again for having me, and thanks for everyone for being here to listen. So the title here is Success Through Accessibility. Really, after my accident, I never wanted to live somewhere that reminded me of a hospital or a rehabilitation facility. So I've made it a point to try and find things that will make my homes feel quote unquote normal. And I always thought about resale and not limiting my renovations to only those with mobility needs. As indicated by Heather, I have lived in 6 homes in the last 23 years that I had to modify. Although I had to experiment from my first home to my current home, um, you too will learn what you like and need over the years. However, hopefully some of what I have to say might help you bypass what I had to learn over the years. I'm hoping I can pass along some ideas that were successful for me in making an accessible home and hopefully help you when deciding on how to make your home more accessible. I do not purport to be an expert by any means, but my lived experience and attention to detail give me a good understanding of what my needed or what may be needed or what may work. Now, if you can start every day off without having to worry about accessibility, your life will be that much less stressful and you can focus on living a successful and independent existence. At the end of my presentation and slideshow, I will wrap up with some tips and tricks that you may find helpful in making your home more accessible. In addition, I am happy to take any questions throughout my presentation, or you can wait until the Q&A session at the end. So here goes. So this first slide here is a house that we lived in Edmonton. I still own this house, but I'm renting it out now. It is probably the 3rd home, I believe, that I modified. As you can see in this photo, the cement here, the driveway was poured in new. We had steps at the front door, and we ended up taking out those stairs and then continued the driveway up and just made a slight ramp up to the front door and made it 0 threshold. What I would recommend if anybody was looking for a home to modify, usually the best homes to do so for people in wheelchairs are bungalows. In this case, I like the walkout bungalows because of access in and out of the home on different levels. So in the front now, I've got 0 threshold. It's a little steeper on this home because the house was elevated because it is a walkout, but it still worked and there is no ramp, which was good for strollers or anybody with mobility issues. In addition to this is I wanted further emergency access in or out of the house if ever need be. If there was something that happened in the house, I wanted to be able to get out of the house in many different spots. So I had access out the front door, I had access out the garage, and I had access out the back through the walkout as well. Now, my second slide here. Sorry, there we go. So here is a photo of my garage and in my current home, and I've got a ramp, as you can see here, that goes in all the way up to the door, and there's a zero threshold as well. In this garage, though, it's no bigger than a regular two-car garage, and we were able to modify it to make it still fit two vehicles, and still have enough room for a ramp. I can discuss that with you guys later, how we did that. And then I just wanted to point out as well, on the ceilings, when you have somebody with a disability or somebody in a wheelchair, you're going to accumulate a lot of stuff. And as my wife says, too much stuff. So what I would recommend is hanging things up, like a spare wheelchair, extra wheels, shower benches, whatever you have. I've got sporting equipment here as well. Hang them up high, especially if you don't need them. And then they can be brought down when you do need them. And then here in this photo, you can't see it as well, but we were able to put some stairs here right in between both vehicles. So you could still fit two vehicles, set of stairs and a ramp into through the garage. Now, here is a photo of a elevator that I installed in my Edmonton home. Now, I did not want the home to look, as I said, institutionalized, and I didn't want to take up an entire room just for an elevator. Now, what you should know, if you are planning on modifying, the difference between elevators and lifts. Elevators have an enclosed shaft and they run in that shaft. They're much more expensive, but they're a lot quicker. And I was able to fortunately make it out of glass so I can still get sun through the windows, and it made it look more aesthetically pleasing. I was able to continue the hardwood into the elevator, and it just made for a good conversation piece. So the glass also, as I said, doesn't make it feel closed in either. And so that's one way of actually making the house look a little less institutional. Here's a side view picture of that same elevator. And as I said, continue the floor into the elevator to make it look the same. And it makes the whole floor plan look a little more open and accessible. And you don't need doors everywhere as well to get in or out. In this case, I just had sensors on the elevator. And then, so here, if you can see as well, we cut out the wall here. This used to be an entire wall with just a door here. We opened it up and made it open and free to access through. But just remember, if you're going to make a cutout like this, think about the individual in the chair and make sure that they can actually see over the ledge, just so their view isn't obstructed by that ledge.
Souheil, sorry to interrupt. We
No,
have
go
a
ahead.
question.
Sure.
Somebody has asked, can I do renovations if I'm living in an apartment or condo? Is it more difficult? And are renovations only possible with your own home?
No, so we ended up our third, I guess, second or third home. We were in an apartment building, and when we went to look at the apartment, we ended up seeing it and noticed that we wanted to make some adjustments. We asked the landlord of the building and just said, we'll have somebody come in, do some things, and we'll put it back to normal when it's done. So we had permission to do so. And in that case, all we did was we had somebody come in and just rip out the bottom of the sink and take it out so it could be wheel under. And then when we left the apartment, we just had that person come back in and install the cabinetry again. And that didn't cost us anything. It was a friend that was able to do it for me, and that worked out well. So I would suggest asking the landlord and just tell them that it could be done you can put it back to the way it was before you had done anything to it. With respect to a condo, if you own the condo, then you can do whatever you want. If you're renting the condo, make sure you get permission as well um, to do those renovations. I hope that answered the question.
I believe so, and there are no follow-up questions. Thanks, Souheil.
Thank you. So here is the elevator or lift that I have in my current home. This is when it was still under construction. As you can see, it doesn't need to be fully enclosed because it isn't a full operational elevator. However, um, there's in this case, I've got sensors on the bottom and on the top of this lift. So if the lift is coming down or going up and a child or anything is underneath it, it will stop when it feels any pressure. So that there's a safety issue there. It is a lot slower than an elevator, but they do the trick, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you don't have the means to put in an elevator. There are also other things like stair lifts, which are even less expensive than a lift like this as well. In this case here, I've got an automatic door, so everything is by remote. And in addition, if it's for somebody elderly, if you wanted, you can have a chair installed inside. Now here is that same elevator when you're upstairs in the upstairs of the house. So as you can see, we tried to continue the floor right through so it didn't look like there was anything there. And when the elevator does come up, it just comes straight up, and all you see are um, these here, the rods that it actually runs up and down on. And it could be a great conversation piece because nobody really notices until the elevator comes through the floor. And as I said, there's sensors as well. So if somebody's standing on top of on that floor piece, the elevator won't come up. But it is the through floor operation, and it provides an open space. So there's not that elevator blocking that area as well. You can still walk on it, jump on it. The kids love to jump up and down, and it's still safe. In addition, on this photo though is the sliding door here I want to show, the pocket door. Pocket doors are phenomenal in making house accessible for renovation purposes. It takes up less space for people in wheelchairs or with mobility issues. They don't have to worry about handles or trying to lift or move out of the way when a door is swinging one way or the other. And pocket doors, as I said, safe space. You can use different handles depending on how much mobility or strength you have in your hands. It actually makes the doors wider. What you want in a home to make any home more accessible is try and get 36-inch doors so somebody in a wheelchair doesn't ratchet up their hands when they're going through. If necessary, if you can't make the door 36 inches, what I recommend is asking somebody or just go to a hardware store and get offset hinges. They're called offset hinges, which makes the door open two more inches normally, so you don't have that extra door space. It outswings the door a little more. So that's a trick that I've learned over the years, and it works great. Here is, as Kevin had mentioned, here's a barn door here that I've got going into the master bathroom. Um, they take up less space and are really easy to use. As you can see, I've got them frosted for the bathroom so you can't see in, so for privacy reasons, and it's a smooth operation. And as you can see, that's the other side of that pocket door, or so it gives privacy as well. Here is an accessible closet. I had this in my home, and back in the day when I installed this, I ordered it from the US, but they are now selling them here. And what it is a pull down closet rod, which brings your clothes to you. So this rod here, you just grab it and pull it down, and all your clothes from the top come down to you. And then you have this, the bottom here where the pants are, these slide out so you can have easier access to them. And those, like I said, that hanging rod is now being sold here in Canada, so it's a lot easier to get, and they're easy installation. My wife was able to install it herself. But when you're considering modifying a closet for somebody, try and make the drawers wider and deeper, rather than, and not too high off the ground so somebody in a wheelchair can actually get them. However, you want them high enough so you're not leaning over and falling out of your chair trying to reach something, but also low enough that you can see into them so you know what you're taking out of the drawers. In addition, you don't want the drawers far back into the wall, as far back. That's why you'd want them deep, because when they're far back, it's harder for people in chairs to reach forward and grab something from the back. On this slide here, this is in my current home right now. This is in the master bathroom, and the normal toilet, the initial toilet that was here, stuck out really far, and this was our master closet, and I couldn't get my wheelchair into the closet because the toilet came out to here, the original one. So I took it upon myself to do some research and find out how we can make this work. And what we found is this toilet that goes into the wall, and doesn't have the backing, and it saved me probably 1.5 feet here of space so I could still get through. We installed the push button flushing mounts right into the wall, and everything is hidden in the back wall there. And the good thing with this is you can set the toilet at any height you want. So if your child or somebody needs it lower or higher, depending on what they need, you can set the height there as well. As I said, it gives you room to get by. You can clean underneath it or store any items that you need underneath it as well. But one thing I want to tell you is be sure that when you're modifying and you know somebody is going to be on a toilet for a prolonged period of time, as usually disabled people spend a little longer in the bathroom. I learned from experience, at my parents' home, at my first home, they had a heating vent on the floor right by the toilet. And I didn't know, because when I was sitting there and I can't feel my legs, my foot was on the heating vent and the heat was on, and I'm on the toilet for an hour. By the time I got off, I had 2nd-degree burns on the bottom of my foot, and I ended up being hospitalized for it. So just remember those little things will save you a lot of heartache. And just from my experience, please watch for those little things with your children or any loved ones as well. Here is the final product that it is now. As you can see, I've got a toilet seat riser, and I want it to be comfortable because I am sitting for such a long time. So I get the cushioned type rather than the hard plastic. Make sure when you are modifying or renovating as well to consider the extra height of a raised toilet seat if you need one, and when you're placing where you're placing your toilet when you want to transfer as well. In this case, after so many years of modifying homes, I realized that I didn't need a big hospitalized or institutionalized looking grab bar. So I ended up just going with a small grab bar that didn't look really like a grab bar, and that's all I need. So there are a lot of different options out there. Just consider what you need. You don't need the big one. Don't get the big one. Um, uh, and so that's there. And now going on to the sinks. Now I know Kevin's sinks were raised in his photos, but I like mine being flush and flush mounted sinks, because for myself, for people in my situation that are paralyzed, you want some space to put your elbows so you have balance. And so you want a lot of counter space. And when you get the sink wet, you can just wipe the water back into the sink. And it's not uncomfortable trying to put your arms over top of a sink. So what I would recommend is the um, the the sink that goes into the countertop. Um, Now, if you are getting custom cabinets made, these are easy to do, but you just need to find a shallow sink and get the height at the proper height so you still have enough room to get your legs underneath.
Souheil, sorry to
Yes,
interrupt. We
no
have a
worries.
couple more questions.
Sure.
So someone has asked, how much, back to the toilet, sorry, how
Yeah,
much
no
more
worries.
expensive was the toilet than a regular toilet?
I don't recall if it was that. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers with me right now, but I'm one of those people that looks around and I call everywhere. I do my research. I'm a lawyer by trade, so I do a lot of research. And what I do is I called around to probably every place that actually had these types of toilets, and I gave them my situation, and I just asked for a discount. I am not shy to say, "Look, I'm in a wheelchair. I've got a disability. This is for a medical reason. Do you have disability discounts? And would you provide that?" And then if not, then I'll just say, look, I'm looking at other places. Would you match or beat it if I wanted to go to that specific place? So unfortunately, I can't tell you how much more or how much more money that was, but I can't see it being too much more. But I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Thank you, Souheil. And someone else has asked, as you mentioned, you have modified many different homes, condos, and apartments to enhance accessibility. When you moved out of these homes, were they marketed specifically to others that needed similar accessibility modifications? Kevin mentioned earlier that funding is key, so I'm just curious because this would allow for people who would truly benefit from these modifications to purchase a home that already has some of these accommodations instead of someone purchasing the homes who don't really need the modifications.
Yeah, great question. So whenever we sell, we always put in the listing that it's wheelchair accessible or handicap, and we use the keywords as well. We'll put in elevator or lift, um, zero threshold, those keywords that people are going to look for or realtors actually look for when they're looking for an accessible home. But like the house that I have in Edmonton, the one with that glass elevator, I still have that. And when I went to sell it, I wanted to sell it to somebody that needed the modifications and the retrofits. Unfortunately, we weren't able to sell it, but we got some renters in there that needed the accessibility, so that was great. Now, with respect to funding as well, there is. I know when my parents renovated their home when I was coming out of leaving the hospital, they got funding through the government to assist um, with their home renos as well. But it depends on, I'm not sure. I think most of the participants are dealing with their children, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if because I was in a motor vehicle accident, a motorcycle accident, I was entitled to a certain amount of money by the government to retrofit or modify my home. It wasn't much, but it did build me a ramp.
Thanks for answering, Souheil. There are no follow-up questions from the
Thank you.
audience. Oh, sorry, one just
Oh,
came in.
sure.
Someone has asked, are there any housing units that focus on housing solely for people with mobility issues? For example, can I buy or rent a house that is already modified to save cost?
Oh, without a doubt. As I said, whenever we looked for homes, we always looked for homes with those keywords as well. So, and you do find a lot of homes that already have a built-in ramp or have an accessible shower or have been modified. You might have to modify it a little more, but you've got the groundwork already. I personally have never built a home from scratch because I still feel like I'm still learning even after 23 years of what's perfect. And I don't want to build a home and be like, oh, you know what, I didn't think of this. And we have been absolutely fine with just modifying or retrofitting, but finding a home that is accessible. I know you can go on Kijiji and just put in wheelchair or handicap and go into the housing, and a bunch of units will come up either in apartments, condos, or homes as well. My wife loves MLS and she just does that for fun, and she's always sending me links of homes that that are of interest as well. I hope that answered the question.
Thanks, Souheil. Kevin has asked, how do you protect yourself from hot pipes under the sink?
Oh, great question. I was going to get to that, but under the sink, you want to have this sink, the pipes under the sink insulated. You want to make sure though as well that the plumber, when you're getting your sinks installed, the pipes need to be recessed back as far as possible, and they can do that. Experienced plumbers know how to do this thing, but all the pipes should be insulated as well, because you can burn your legs and cause some serious damage when the hot water is running.
Thanks, Souheil. There are no other questions.
Perfect. So going back to this slide, I just want to touch on the lever faucets as well are easier for people with mobility concerns. So lever faucets are a lot better. And then the mirrors as well. Always remember, we didn't do this in our first renovation. The mirrors you want to make as low as possible to the counter, because you want somebody in a wheelchair to be able to see not just their face, but their torso as well, if at all possible. And you don't want them trying to look up all the time and having their neck strained. So make sure, or try and get the mirrors down as low as possible. In addition, make sure any electrical plugs that you have in the bathroom that they may need for any type of either a toothbrush or razor or anything like that, make sure that those are accessible as well. Just think of those things as well. So here is my home in Edmonton as well. We gutted this bathroom. These are double sinks here. There's a sink here and there's a sink here. So it's a double vanity, and you can tell it doesn't look any different than any other vanity. It's aesthetically pleasing, I believe. And you can't tell that anything has been modified for a wheelchair. And then what's another thing is choose the fixtures that are going to be best suited for the person that's going to be using it. So if somebody does have a mobility or hand functions that don't function very well, think of those things that will make their lives a little easier. As well, tile floors are always a lot easier for a chair to move on, and they're a lot easier for cleanup. So this photo is a picture of a wheel under sink that looks absolutely normal. And as I said, I always try to make things look like they are going to look for resale value. This here is that exact same sink with the doors open. So what I've done here is I've put in retractable doors that open and then slide in. They're easy to install and they're really smooth, and you can close them and put shelving underneath them at the end, or if you don't need it for a wheelchair anymore, and you wouldn't never know any difference. And here is where that question came in. The piping here, it's recessed, and this is just insulated here so your legs aren't burned, and the plastic piping as well, or the PVC rather than metal pipes, so you don't burn yourself. So there's the sink with recessed doors, which I love. And here, lastly, this one here is in my current home. This is an accessible wheel-in shower with sliding glass surround doors here. As Kevin mentioned, these need to be, unfortunately, custom made to fit, but they give the space a lot more, they make it look a lot more open here. Here I've got a fold down bench for me, and I just transfer onto here. And then there's a grab bar here that just lowers and then clips up when not in use. And the bench just folds up when not in use as well. I can still wheel in and get into the bathtub if need be. And if you need bath lifts, there's bath lifts as well that you can purchase, or just get a bath bench that you can transfer onto. So there's that. And a lot of people ask, where's the drainage? We put the drainage here on beside the tub and with a tiny slope for the water to drain in. And when the kids are splashing around in the tub, you don't have to worry about any water coming out because it just drains in there, and you close these doors and water never goes down. So that's it for the slides, but I wanted to end by just giving some handy tips to remember for everyone here. So there's a barrier-free guide that I used, which was useful when I first started doing home renos. And I think all I did was I Googled it, barrier-free guide, and then looked through that. That helped. In addition, I just attended an a, a- an expo, an accessibility expo as well, and the Paralyzed Veterans of America put on a workshop, and I've provided the links to those to ARK to provide to you afterwards. They've got a very handy guide that looks and will tell you all about what you need to make it ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, compliant, but it would be very helpful with here in Canada. The guide is $16.99 US, but I've provided the 2 links of YouTube videos. One was for a bathroom renovation and one was for a kitchen renovation for anybody that had mobility issues. So I would suggest looking at those videos, which I thought were very helpful. As I said, if you are looking for products for anything that you need, Google search the products for what you want, and then narrow your search to Canada. So if you're looking for shower bench, cushioned shower bench, put cushioned shower bench Canada, and then that will narrow it down. You can narrow it to Calgary or Edmonton, wherever you are, and then go that way. As I said, ask for a disability discount on everything. If you don't ask, you're never going to know, and it doesn't hurt to ask. So I always do. And if they say no, I say, you know what, do you have a seniors discount? If they say yes, then, can't you apply that to me as well? And they usually will. So it doesn't hurt to ask, do it. Kijiji has been a great friend of mine for used or new products at reasonable prices, and you can negotiate. If you need anything that's uh, for the home, I look at it daily and I type in wheelchair in Kijiji, or if I type in something for that I need, shower bench, raised toilet seat, anything, you can pretty much find it on Kijiji at a much more reasonable price. AADL, or Alberta Aids to Daily Living, may assist you if you have a home care nurse through the Calgary Aids for Independent Living for medical equipment. So if you have a nurse that's coming to the home to help out your child or anybody in your family, you just ask them if they can recommend, and the government will pay to get you what you need to make your home accessible. So if you need a shower chair, or if you need a bath seat, and just say, and just give them the reason, like, I need to get on, I need to take a shower, I need to go to the bathroom, I keep falling when I transfer, they will get you that equipment. It might be a cost share, but it will help you tremendously. What I found is I have those grabbers around the entire home. So you can get those at the Dollarama now. And I know I'm a little over time, sorry. I just want to get these tips out to you. Grabbers at Dollarama, find those, put them around the house so people in wheelchairs can feel more independent and they're not always asking for assistance all the time. They can use those grabbers to grab things and feel like they're just part of the house and not having to worry about bothering somebody. Get a contractor who's going to listen to you, that's going to be patient and is willing to search for things that you need or want. Make sure they have insurance liability as well, and make sure that they are going to get the permits for you. If you need to build an elevator or put in a ramp or a lift or something, make sure they're going to get that permit for you rather than you having to run around to do it. In addition, when you're renovating or if you want to modify a home, rounded wall corners I found really nice, because rounded wall corners in a wheelchair, if they're sharp edges, you're going to chip those a lot. So if you can, get the rounded wall corners, they look really nice too. And if you are considering making modifications or renovations for a child right now, just remember that heights change for children because they are going to grow. Their wheelchair is going to get bigger. It's going to get wider. So if you don't want the sink or something that you're going to modify to go just right to their knees, because they're going to grow and then you don't want to renovate again. So just be weary of that and be cautious that it's going to change. Their height's going to change. Their width is going to change. Carpets are very hard to wheel on, and they get dirty and they leave tracks on them where your wheelchair goes all the time. Um, Thresholds of doors should be flush, and if not, use removable ramps. I've got removable ramps in my house here, and I'm 23 years out. I figure if anybody's coming to my home, they're going to know I'm in a wheelchair or somebody in the house is in a wheelchair. They're not going to be shocked by seeing a removable ramp. And big deal, it's a ramp. Um, I figure if they don't want to see it, then don't come over. As Kevin had mentioned, keep receipts for tax purposes. Get an accountant who is informed and experienced with the disability tax credit, because you can claim a lot of renovations, a lot of expenses. Just give those to your accountant and claim those. Um, as Kevin had on his door, he had a handle as well on his door so you can shut it a lot easier. What I did, instead of using a handle, I just tied a string to the door handle and a little hook screw on the opposite side and used the string to pull the door shut. Remember though, and this was I've a learned experience, sharp edges where the child or anybody is going to be transferring. So if you're going to transfer onto a toilet and there's a sink there, that sharp ledge on the sink could scratch their back or cut them. You don't want any sharp edges for walls where they're transferring, or where their feet can get caught or scratched up because they're transferring. As we said, use lever handles on doors because doorknobs are not very accessible or good. Remember too, though, that renovations to make accessible housing and renovations can be either very costly or can be quick fixes that will get you by and won't cost you as much money. So with that said, I'd open it up to any further questions. Thank you very much for your time, and best of luck in your renos.
Thank you, Souheil. There is one question that somebody has asked, and if anybody else has any other questions of the speakers, we will share their contact information, and we welcome you to please reach out to them directly. The question, Souheil, is, are there any other things apart from heaters and pipes that one needs to worry about when renovating that can cause injuries?
As I said, yeah. So as I said, the sharp edges. So I've scratched my back on a sink counter because when I transferred onto the toilet, I'd scratched my back on it. The sharp walls, if beside the toilet there's a sharp wall, even by the bed or something, remember to, if the child or the person doesn't have use of their legs, if they're going to transfer and they're on a bed, if the bed is wooden at the bottom, you can get slivers or cut yourself as well. So be wary or cautious of that as well. It's a lot of the transferring motion is where the injuries occur, but the heaters on the floor, be careful of where those are positioned so kids don't get burned as well.
Thank you, Souheil. And thank you so much for sharing your tips and your valuable insights. I definitely learned a lot. And I would also like to thank you, Kevin, as well, both of you, for being so inspiring and for taking time out of your days to be here and share your personal stories and helpful tips and insights with our audience today. For anybody else that's wondering about funding, for mobility challenged children up to 25 years of age, ARK's purpose is to renovate their families' homes to make them accessible by partnering with trades workers and suppliers throughout the city. And while we focus on helping these kids, there's also accessible housing, as you know, which is a resource, and they provide additional resources for assisting adults with accessibility. I would also like to say that if anyone is interested in looking further into the links that our speakers have mentioned, we will be sending that out in our follow-up email coming from ARK in the next day or so, as well as a recording of our webinar. Okay, so we're almost done with our webinar. I just want to share a couple of items and our silent auction details. I would like to quickly share with you that we have received a ramp grant from the provincial government for Colby's project. So we are super excited about that. And on behalf of the entire ARK team and our panelists today, I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to spend time with us and support our accessibility community. If you haven't already, please sign up for our online newsletter and stay in touch with us and find out more details about our upcoming projects and virtual events. And we're also looking for new volunteers. We've got a bunch of different areas that we would love additional support on, as well as new project nominees. More on both of these things can be found on our website, which is www.arksociety.ca. And if anybody feels moved to donate, you're more than welcome to. We can always use your donations. These funds will go towards future projects. And any proceeds that we collect today from the silent auction will go towards our project in January. There's a donate now button on our website. Again, the URL is arksociety.ca. And don't forget to follow us on our social media channels. I would now like to request that the silent auction slide be put up with the link. There we go. ARK silent auction with December 18th at midnight as the deadline. The link is www.biddingowl.com/arksociety. So that's where the sneak peek is. And further details will be emailed out to everybody that attended today. With that, I would like to say, very importantly, on behalf of the entire ARK team, I would like to extend a giant thank you to our accessibility community and our sponsors for your generous support. None of this would be possible without you. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe and healthy.